When Helldivers 2 blew up, it was immediately labeled a flavor of the week game. Now that we're 2 months down the line, is the game still alive? Is it good? Well, the best place to start is with the numbers. Helldivers 2 released on February 8th, however, the earliest the Steam charts will show me is February 16th, which had 326,000 players on Steam alone. Later, climbing to an impressive peak of 458,000 players on Steam on February 23rd. While I can't find an exact number of players because Sony doesn't give out that data, we can use some basic math to estimate the total number. On Thursday, April 11th, around noon, Steam says there were 209,000 players, yet Helldivers says there's 272,000 players. We can assume that this difference is made up by PlayStation players. This comes out to around 61,000 PlayStation players, which is around 30% of the Steam players. If we do some very unscientific comparisons, we get that PC had its peak of around 458,000 players. There would be 137,000 players on PlayStation, for a huge total of close to 600,000 players. I'm aware of the numerous issues with calculating like this, however, it's the closest I'm gonna try to get. Now that we have the peak players total, I'm going to never use that number again and just use the Steam numbers, because that's what's available to me. What matters for game metrics is peak players during the weekend, at least to people on Twitter or X, if that's your style. So the peak players last weekend, which was April 6th and 7th, was 333,000 players. They don't call it Helldivers for nothing. Sorry, dumb joke. This is 72% of the highest peak, just short of 2 months later. I think it's fair to say this game has become much more than the flavor of the month. Just in the numbers alone, the game has not left the top 10 concurrent players on Steam since its release. It's currently number 5, however last night I saw it at 3rd. It's still over double last place. Now, for a lot of people, all these numbers in a vacuum don't really mean anything, so let's compare it to some other games. Starting with what most people compared it to, which is another flavor of the week game, Lethal Company. Don't get me wrong, I had a great time with this game, very much worth the money I spent, but I will be surprised if I play Lethal Company again. Lethal Company peaked at 239,000 players, which is no small feat for an individual developer. Zeekers, if you somehow see this, great job. This peak was hit on November 30th, and maintained above 100,000 players consistently until January 21st, losing more than 50% of its player base over this time. This is the general life cycle of games like these. I expect Content Warning to do the same, but an even faster pace. I want to reiterate that this is in no way a slight to Zeekers. Solo devs dream of the success that they have had. Arrow Studios, which is the Helldiver devs, have around 100 employees. There is a drastic difference in the amount of staying power a team of 100 can make versus a solo dev. Now, another comparison is Palworld, the most explosive game I have seen since New World. This game skyrocketed, breaking Counter-Strike's peak player record and hitting 2.1 million players on at one time. Then, over the course of a month, falls to 266,000 players, and then down to 68,000 in the next month. Some of this drop-off can be blamed by Helldivers popping off as well. Games will always lose players as hype dies, but measuring the rate of decline can provide helpful information. While Helldivers did not have such a high peak player base, it had well outlasted Palworld and Lethal Company month for month. So now that we've covered the numbers and seen Helldivers' survivability over the time that many had deemed the game would be dead by, let's get into why people are staying and if the game is actually good. First and foremost, I am biased. I'm close to maxing out my ship. JK, an update came out today with more ship upgrades. This is a great day. I have 124 hours and have unlocked all the achievements, so I will speak on what I have seen and the experiences that I have had that made this game so good for me. The easiest one to say is all the buzzwords. The immersion is some of the best in multiplayer gaming without getting in the way of the fun. The community is very alive and active on social media, so it's great to see posts about what's currently going on in the war. The constantly moving war makes for great replayability and gives the sense of purpose. And the devs have constantly updated the game throughout the whole time. We just got our 4th war bond, which includes a grenade pistol, an explosive crossbow, and an explosive sniper, as well as some other stuff, including armor and boosters. Basically, they are very active on the dev side, but a lot of people haven't seen what's been added, so let me give you a quick rundown with some visuals hopefully. They've added a third warbond to the game that gave us an electric shotgun, a laser pistol, and the best laser rifle in the game, and oh, it is so good. I've already covered the fourth warbond, but they added the mechs, which is the whole power fantasy against the bugs. Don't even think of using it against the robots though, unless you want to die. They added a new heavy machine gun that rips, a new quasar rifle, which is basically a laser rocket launcher. It has infinite ammo, but it needs to cool off for about 5 seconds after every shot. They added a new mission type for the bugs that was to turn on the termicide machines, though these missions are gone for now because we have turned them all on. They buffed a lot of lesser used guns. The arc thrower is my favorite, but I still use the others if a mission calls for it, and I'm happy to do so. In the new update, they added some more ship upgrades that are expensive and really good upgrades. We now have flying bugs and flying bots, and both of them are as awful as they sound. They also added a huge walking bot factory enemy, and that boy is tanky. They rebalanced rescue missions so that they're now actually doable at higher levels, and this is just stuff that's actually been added with a lot more leaks and dev confirmations. The most anticipated of them all is a whole new enemy faction. Players have spotted blue lasers flying across the sky and cloaked ships in space visible from the planet. I won't say more to not spoil anything for anyone, and the Ministry of Truth has also not approved it yet, but I do anticipate a huge rise in players when that faction is added. On top of all the updates and additions that the devs have added, they have some of the best communication out there, as well as the best plan for releasing content. We often aren't told about new enemies that are added and simply run into them on the battlefield for a fun and deadly surprise. The handling of the game has set a new bar for live service games that make the world feel so alive. The ideas seem like no-brainers in hindsight, but I think this is due to them not having a AAA studio and actually having a love for the game. We've seen multiple cases of devs joining random people's games and giving them unreleased weapons and vehicles and just interacting with the player base. I'll start rambling if I try to explain everything that comes together to make it such a wonderful experience, but I would cry tears of joy if other dev teams would follow Arrowhead's example, because it's some of the best work I have seen. The last thing I will say is that this game just feels good. The guns feel good, fighting off hordes in many scenarios you'll find yourself in is just a good time, and you'll often run into funny situations when you're playing with your friends. There's a large variety in how the game is played, from mission to mission and faction to faction, and with the promise of more stuff coming, it's hard not to just keep playing. Let me know if you're still playing Helldivers down in the comments. Get out there, Helldiver.